Thank you, Madam Clerk. I will call the meeting to order. I believe Councillor Thompson will join us later. Councillor Sutherland has sent regrets. I'll call the meeting to order. Land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the three fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. And further give thanks to the Chippewa Saugeen, Chippewa Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse people. Approval of agenda. Madam Clerk, you have some additions to the agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we do, but if I may, I would prompt Councillor Coburn to start, and then I will follow.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Coburn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've just been asked to speak to a Cobble Beach group who would like to perhaps have a little more information about the renovations of the Campbell Community Center, and also about the opportunity, if it's possible, to have some pickleball offered in that community center over the winter months. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll put that under new business, Madam Clerk. Okay. Is there any other council member that has any other new business? Seeing none, I'll turn the floor over to you, Madam Clerk.
Hi, Kathy.
Councillor Barfoot, do you have any additions to the agenda?
Have you got your audio on?
Councillor Barfoot, we are now entertaining additions to the agenda. Do you have any? Councillor Barfoot? Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, staff would respectfully request addition of the public written submissions that have been forwarded to council via a PDF package. The same pieces of correspondence have been uploaded to the township website for public review and will form part of the public meeting process this evening. Additionally, we would like to request that bylaw 2021-066, being a bylaw to approve the sale of the Wyerton-Keppel International Airport, be moved in the agenda order of business to be immediately following the public meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I have a recommendation here that correspondence item received following the date of agenda publication regarding the sale of the Wyerton-Keppel International Airport be added for consideration during the public meeting process, and that the agenda order of business be amended to consider bylaw 2021-066 immediately following the public meeting, and that a discussion regarding pickleball at Campbell Arena be added to new business, and that the agenda be approved as amended. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlson, second by Councillor Coburn. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion? Councillor Barfoot, I cannot see your hand. Can you indicate yes or no, please? The motion is carried. Okay, Madam Clerk, we'll take just a 5-minute break.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just as a point of order, Councillor Barfoot, can you see us and hear us?
Yes, I can see you and I can finally hear you. I had my volume turned down, sorry.
Okay, no problem. If you're able to, please enable your video for the purposes of vote taking.
My video's on.
It is not.
Well, I can see myself in the bottom right-hand corner.
I
Okay.
can see you there, Brittany.
You can see
Pardon?
Counselor Barfoot?
I can, so, yep.
Okay, no
Thank
problem
you,
at all.
Grant.
No problem. Counselor Barfoot, if you may, we cannot see you in council chambers, so just indicate your voting as we move forward.
Well, I suggest the problem's on your side because Counselor Pringle can see me. I can see myself. I don't know if Counselor Colburn can see me.
No, I'm sorry, Councillor Barfoot, I cannot see you either, just the circle with your initials in it.
Councilor Bradford, for just so we can make sure we hear your vote when it comes, would you please just speak up if you when we vote then, and if you have any comments, please just speak up.
Oh, I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to move on to the agenda. Declaration of pecuniary interest, you can clear anytime you see fit during the meeting. Minutes of the previous meetings, that the minutes of the council meeting held on September 8th, 2021 be adopted. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Pringle. Second by Councilor Colburn. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, please indicate your vote for or against. Motion is for. Show of hands in favor. Carol?
Four.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay.
The motion is carried. Moving on to our next special council meeting, that the minutes of the special council meeting held on September 9th, 2021 be adopted. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Thompson. Welcome, Brian. Second
Thank you,
by
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Pringle. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion, please.
Four.
Thanks, Carol. It's carried. Moving on to our next special call meeting, that the minutes of the special call meeting held on September 13th, 2021 be adopted. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by
So
Councilor
moved.
Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor, and I can see you, Councilor Barfoot. Good.
Thank
Okay,
you.
the motion was carried. We are down, no announcements. We are down to our public hearings. Sale of the Wharton Keppel International Airport. In accordance with Township Surplus Land Policy, Council is hosting this public meeting to gather feedback of the public regarding the sale of the Wharton Keppel International Airport. As the public will hear this evening, all deeming the land surplus. Council simply moves to entertain offers to purchase. To be clear, Council has not moved to permanently close the facility. We're simply entertaining offers to purchase of the facility to gauge interest in the market. First, I'll invite the clerk to outline report LEG 2021-28 as attached to the meeting agenda. Following her review, I'll open the floor to members of the public which have registered to speak this evening. Speaker will be permitted to ask questions to council. I now read the recommendation for us and welcome the clerk to begin her review. Madam Clerk, I'll read the recommendation. Okay. The report LEG 2021 sale Wharton Keppel International Airport be received for information, and that all comments submitted during the public meeting be received for information, and that the evaluation criteria as included in this report form a part of the evaluation process. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Pringle, second by Councilor Barfoot. It's now on the floor. Madam Clerk, I'm going to turn forward to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just prior to beginning my presentation, Councillor Barfoot has her hand raised.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councilor Barfoot.
Councillor Barfoot, you are muted.
Could you disable it for me, Brittany? Thank you. or Brian.
No problem. No problem.
Okay, thank you. Counselor, okay. We're good to go. Madam Clerk, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if everyone will just bear with me, we have prepared a presentation. I'm just going to share our screen. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to all, and welcome to all of our public registrants this evening. Our intention here this evening is to provide additional information regarding the sale of the Wyerton-Kepler International Airport. All of the information that you will see throughout this PowerPoint is directly taken from the report that has been included in the agenda package, being Report LEG 2021-28. Following this presentation, we will move through our public registrants, then we will open the floor for questions of council. So to begin, an overview of background as to how we've gotten here this evening. So as everyone is aware, including council and the public, Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs purchased the airport facility from the town of Southburst Peninsula in 2015 at a cost of $600,000. Since taking ownership, the township has budgeted capital and operating allocations annually, including a scheduled service pilot project in 2019 through to 2020. Currently, the facility is managed by the Lumex Group, which the township partnered with in 2020. Since taking ownership, the township has hosted multiple opportunities for public engagement, including this evening. Said public engagement has included 2 public meetings, one occurring on November 24th, 2020, and the other on June 23rd, 2021. Further, a public survey was also completed in spring of this year, being 2021. As part of these meetings, the township received over 25 written submissions from the public and heard from 32 different speakers. Throughout those public engagement sessions, certain themes arose, and these are all covered in my open session report. So the themes are outlined on this slide, being, while the public is generally in favor of the airport, constituents are not in support of funding its continued operations. Operations are a drain on township taxation. As a small rural municipality, the township can no longer afford to maintain the airport as an operational asset. And while the airport facility has a great deal of potential as an economic development, tourism, and life-saving asset to the Grey Bruce region, we can no longer continue to support it. So overall, council has heard loudly and clearly from the public that while they are in support generally of the airport, and again, generally, they are not in support of continuing to fund its ongoing operations through annual taxation. Which brings us to the feasibility study. So to better understand the identified potential, and I keep using that word because it's a word we've heard over and over again in reference to this facility. So to better understand the identified potential at this facility, council approved completion of a feasibility study in 2020. This venture was undertaken in collaboration with the County of Grey and completed in June of 2021. The study provided a detailed analysis of the property, facility as a whole, and potential for development of what we've referred to a prosperity hub concept, which would see development of the airport industrial lands. The study was presented to council and that of the County of Grey in June of 2021. Upon receipt of the report, Grey County Council deferred it for further consideration at a future meeting, undefined. The study generated interest in the airport facility, which has led us to where we are today, being the declaration of surplus. So what does that mean? What is declaration of surplus? Per the Municipal Act, every municipality shall develop and adopt policies regarding the disposition of surplus lands. Essentially, To sell property that is publicly owned, the municipality must first declare the land surplus to the needs of the municipality and entertain offers for purchase via a public process. The township's policy to govern this disposition of public lands was adopted by bylaw in 2007 and is attached to report LEG 2021-28 as Appendix A. This policy requires that Council by resolution deem the lands to be surplus. This was completed by Resolution RES 2021-165 at the September 13th special council meeting. Further, a public meeting must be held to consider the sale and receive feedback from the public, which is the intention of this public meeting this evening. Third, notice must be published at least 2 weeks in advance of the meeting. Notice of this public meeting was circulated in the weekly publications of the Sun-Times and Echo following the declaration in September, giving us a solid 3 to 4 weeks of circulation in said publications, shared via social media, and uploaded to the township website. And lastly, that a bylaw be passed to authorize the sale, which is included this evening by bylaw 2021-66. Again, what does this mean? I've given you a lot of information, but how do I digest it? So, for clarity, by deeming the land surplus, council simply moves to entertain offers for purchase. Should council be unsatisfied with submitted offers, the bylaw may be repealed with the asset remaining in the ownership of the township. Council has not established parameters for the sale of this facility. Therefore, any and all offers are being accepted, including those that propose to keep the facility as an airport and those that propose any other use. Essentially, investors or potential buyers have carte blanche as to the offers they submit. Council will have the opportunity to review those offers as a collective body upon receipt. What this does not mean. So for clarity, the airport is not closed. The airport has not been sold. The facility remains open. The offering process remains open until October 14th, and the airport may remain an operational airport. The use of the facility, should it be sold, has not been defined at this point, as council has not defined parameters. Again, any and all offers are being accepted until the 14th of October. Again, for clarity, the airport remains operational throughout the sale process. Council will entertain all offers for purchase, including those to maintain airport operations. Should council be unsatisfied with the offers submitted, they may opt to, first, extend the deadline for offer submissions, or second, retain the asset as a township-owned facility. As council has moved to entertain any and all offers, staff have developed evaluation criteria including 3 points for application to any offer that is submitted. So to ensure a fair and accountable process, the evaluation criteria we will outline here this evening are proposed to be applied to any offer that is submitted, regardless of what it proposes to use the facility and the lands for. Staff seek council's endorsement of this criteria this evening, further to the second point as included in the motion. So the evaluation criteria include as follows. First, financial. This is the first and foremost consideration that we ask council to consider in this process. So in the financial application of the criteria, all offers must demonstrate a relief of financial burden to the township. All offers shall relieve the township of any and all financial encumbrances as a result of owning and operating the airport, including but not limited to operating and capital costs, outstanding debt, etc. Staff have proposed that offers which do not fulfill the first criteria do not be considered by council. Secondly, environmental. Offers will be evaluated by determining their impact or potential impact to the natural environment, including but not limited to offset of carbon emissions, development of natural lands, and methods of limiting any environmental impacts. This aligns with Council's strategic priorities and development of the Climate Action Committee. Third is economic development. Offers will be evaluated by determining their benefit or potential benefit to the local economy, including but not limited to impact to tax assessment and growth, creation of employment opportunities, creation of tourism opportunities, and long-term community growth. Again, this is in line with Council's strategic plan and the economic development portion of said plan. And at this time, I'll turn it over to our Director of Finance, Cassandra Rocca, who will outline the financial implications as included in the report. Cassie?
Thank you, Brittany. So we just wanted to include in this report a few of the figures that we've used and we've provided to council and the public in determining the need to list this asset for sale, or one of the considerations when we were making that decision. So as council and the public are aware, we purchased 50% of the airport back in 2015 for $600,000. Since that time, through operating and capital budgets, we have inputted about $2.4 million of taxpayer funds into the airport. In addition, we've accumulated interest on the loan that we took out to purchase the airport in the amounts of $70,000 to date. So when you add all those figures together, our investment in the airport is over $3 million to this point. Oh, thank you, Brittany. So it's actually $3,075,000 is what we've committed. And I will say these numbers were put together maybe about a month ago, so they've only increased since that time. Next slide, please, Brittany. So if we sell the airport, other than no longer owning the asset, what does that look like for us? So there is a cost savings, and we've tried to highlight the cost savings over the next 5 years if the airport were to sell. So firstly, we'll no longer have annual operating or capital budgets for the airport. And staff have estimated that cost to be from $400,000 in year 1 to $450,000 in year 5. And like I said, that's just an estimate based on what we're currently putting towards the airport in tax dollars. The other thing, the cost savings we will have is building improvements. So back in 2019, we had building condition assessments done on all municipally owned buildings. And at the airport, there are 3. There's the terminal building, the shop, and the restaurant. So that building condition assessment identified $568,000 in maintenance and repairs and capital upgrades that would be needed over the next 5 years to keep those 3 buildings in operational condition. So if we were to sell the airport, we're relieving that capital commitment. The other major item upon the sale of the airport and a savings that we'd realize is no longer the need to replace the runway. When we purchased the airport back in 2015, we were aware that capital upgrades would be needed to the runway. And other than doing some crack sealing and some patching, we have not really put any sort of investments in the runway since we've owned it. So we looked at the condition and we looked at the assessment, and we estimate that a $6 million investment is needed to rehabilitate those runways. And that would need to be done within the next 3 years. So overall, if we were to sell the airport, we estimate savings at least of $8.7 million. And what that doesn't include is a few of the unknowns. So, for example, if council wanted to explore the idea of this prosperity hub that was talked about in the feasibility study, in order to develop those lands, we would have to bring water and sewer services, just sewer services to that facility. And with that, we would also need to do some storm water management. If we want to develop those lands, we would need to do these upgrades, and the cost of those are unknown at this time. Next slide, please, Britt. Oh. So, Britt, I'm not sure if you wanted me to speak to this slide or if you wanted to.
I'm prepared to speak to it, Cass.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Cass, for that outline of the financials that are included in the report. Next up is leases. So as an additional consideration throughout the sale process, the township currently holds various leases with leasing parties for space at the facility. Said leases range from long-term uses being 20 plus years to short-term uses being anywhere from 2 to 5 years. All existing leases and their implications to the sale process will be reviewed during the purchasing due diligence period. So speaking of the sale process, council commenced that process by declaring the property surplus on September 13th at their special council meeting. Since that time, township staff have been working with interested parties and legal counsel to provide informational materials and facilitate proactive due diligence. A realtor has not been retained on the township's behalf. This has been completely facilitated by township staff in coordination with legal counsel. An information package is provided to all parties upon their request, including the completed feasibility study, a topographical map of the lands, income statements from 2015 through to 2021, and all existing lease agreements, being the long-term and the short-term commitments that we just covered. As council is aware, the County of Grey has partnered with Think Canada or Think Compass, a consulting firm engaged to assist with economic development throughout the county. As council and the public is well aware, the township does not currently have economic development in-house, so we seek their partnership often. This firm has been engaged with airport discussions since approximately 2019 and have been involved in the sale process thus far. Their services are provided at the county level, therefore come at no monetary cost to the township. Their retainer is fully paid at the county level. Similar to a real estate firm, Think Canada is welcome to present offers for purchase of any kind to the attention of the township throughout this public process. They have been provided the same materials that all interested parties have been, as I referenced in that information package. So in summary, to cover what we've covered here this evening, council has declared the airport lands and facility surplus to simply entertain offers for purchase. The airport is not closed. It has not been sold. All offers will be reviewed and evaluation criteria will be applied. All offers are due to the township by October 14th, 2021. And again, to cover, that's a 4-week process that we've undertaken. And further to the feasibility study, and as outlined in the financial statements provided by our Director of Finance, the sale has the potential to alleviate the taxation burden to the township, as well as add additional new tax revenues, should we see development of that property transpire. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that ends our presentation this evening. So through your chair, I would like to commence welcoming those members of the public that have registered.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Just one point of clarity, please.
Yes.
To our treasurer and you, your $6 million figure concerning the runway, I believe that cost would include replacement of the runway lights too. It's just a point of clarity. Okay, just so it doesn't come up. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, through your chair, I will invite the public members to speak. Prior to, I'll outline some procedures to be acknowledged throughout this submission period.
Please go ahead.
So as a reminder to our speakers, please keep your microphones muted when you are not speaking. If you do not have your device muted, we will do so for you. Further to the instructions provided to you upon registration for this meeting, to unmute yourself, please select the microphone icon found on your Teams home screen, or by tapping on your screen, or if you are participating by telephone, please select *6 to unmute yourself. Each speaker will be provided 5 minutes to submit their comments. You will be provided a 30-second warning prior to the completion of your allotted 5 minutes. Should you not wish to make a comment or ask questions, please indicate so when you are called upon, and we will move to the next speaker. We ask that speakers remain respectful and parliamentary while submitting your comments, to not interrupt their peers, and only speak when they are invited to do so. All participants will be called upon in the order of their registration, with the first registrant being invited to speak first, etc. When you are called upon, please state your name and address or municipality of primary residence for the record. Additionally, I would like to draw both council's and the public's attention to the written comments and questions as submitted by the members of the public. All written comments received have been circulated to council and uploaded to the township website, specifically in the October 6, 2021 meeting site. To begin, I will now invite the Honorable MPP Bill Walker, participating by teleconference, to submit their comments. Mr. Walker, if you're present, please go ahead. Okay, we will circle back to Mr. Walker. Miss Ann Duman, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Brittany. Greetings to council. I think you all know me. I just want to give you a little brief background. My name is Ann Duman, a resident of Shallow Lake. We've been resident here for over 7 years now. I'd like sort of to let you know that I'm quite familiar with large infrastructure projects, both as a banker at one time and also working for one of the world-class largest EPCM engineering companies. So reading through this wasn't a struggle for me. I'd like to remark on the fact that I appreciate council's position on this. I like the idea of considering the sale. I support it completely. I've gone through the feasibility study. It's extensive, but I'm not betting on it, I must admit, unfortunately. I only have a couple of things to comment on in everything that I've seen. One in particular, though, strikes me, and I've heard this as Brittany was going through the presentation along with Cassie. I've heard the fact that no parameters have been established. I heard all offers to purchase will be accepted. However, I also see that within the criteria financial, that offers that do not fulfill the first criteria will not be considered. And I'll just remind you that that is the offer that, or the criteria that all encumbrances owning and operating the airport, including but not limited to operating and costs, have to be fulfilled. So in other words, I'm reading that as the fact that any offer has to be a minimum of $3.075 million, or it will not be considered. I'd like to suggest to council that they amend that. I think we are all quite aware of the fact that that may not be a criteria to discard an offer to purchase, looking at the fact that we are attempting to avoid costs in excess of $8 million over the next 5 years. I think that almost everyone will agree that there are opportunities when you have something up for sale to consider that you are doing what's called an avoidance of expenses. And I really would appreciate if you would reconsider that criteria as it's been proposed by staff. Other than that, I appreciate all the work that has gone into this. It is unfortunate that I don't think we can support this airport. Quite frankly, I don't want to support the airport. I'd like the money that we have going elsewhere. I think council does a great job of doing that. And so I will just leave you with that and ask you to amend that recommendation that's been made by staff so that you do really have the opportunity to consider any and all offer which is made to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Duman. Next on my list is Ron and Judy Hillsden. Ron and Judy, please go ahead. Okay, it appears the Hillsdens have left us. Next on our list is Miss Laura McNamara, and I apologize if I mispronounce your names throughout this process. So Laura, you are muted. There you go. Please go ahead. Laura, you're now unmuted. Please go ahead.
To hear at this point? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Oh, excellent. Okay, then I will move on. Thank you. I'm glad for this opportunity to speak with you today. This community needs its airport. It's a vital part of our transportation system. I have previously sent in a written submission for this meeting, which I expect you've received, to express how important the Wiarton Capital International Airport is in our local healthcare. Today, I have a couple of thoughts I wish to share with Council, and then I have one question I'd like to ask. I grew up in houses adjacent to Wiarton Airport. When I finished university and training, I did make the move to live on the Lake Huron side at Oliphant. Now I'm residing to the north of Colpoys Bay. The airport has always been a big part of why I am living in this area. I recognize the airport supports a population beyond the boundaries of Georgian Bluffs, and frankly, I'm disappointed that the surrounding municipalities and Bruce County and Grey County have not agreed to contribute to it as a regional airport. And I suggest those sources of financial support be pursued again. When I read the background information on the proposed sale of the airport that was provided by Council for this meeting, I noticed the columns detailing the expenses associated with the airport, but there was not a similar listing of the value it brings to the region. I want to speak to this, to the value it brings. I retired last year from working as an emergency department physician in Kitchener. Prior to my work in Kitchener, I was a family physician in Wiarton for 10 years, providing medical care in the settings of outpatient family medicine, in-hospital care, and as an emergency physician at the Wiarton Hospital. My experience as a rural emergency physician has shown how necessary our local airport is for the transportation of patients. The airport allows us to access Orange paramedics and air ambulance. Orange can transfer a critically ill patient more quickly than a land ambulance, and they can provide a higher level of care en route because of their equipment and skills. The value this brings in achieving better health outcomes for people needs to be noted, but it won't be seen on your accounting spreadsheet. If a patient transfer cannot be made through Orange, then it requires the hospital to send a nurse on transfer, meaning your local hospital loses a nurse for the hours it takes to travel to the tertiary center and back by vehicle. The ambulance and its paramedic crew is also not available for additional calls in the community during the time of transfer. And sometimes a physician is needed for the transfer, which then means another physician has to be found to cover your local emergency department. This has great impact on everyone in the community. It increases the patient wait times in ER, increases the workload on the health workers. especially if a second acutely ill patient arrives in ER while your staff's gone on transfer. Having Orange accessible to provide patient transfer is of great value to your hospital, but it will not show up on your spreadsheet. If one does a deep dive down into the other uses of the airport, such as tourism, search and rescue, a refueling station for aircraft, a place for safe landing if a flight's interrupted by weather, the ability to give our youth exposure to the careers and the chance for fun. I remember fun in life and the adventure that aviation offers. You can find great value from the airport, value that doesn't have a place to show up on the spreadsheet. I do think the airport expenses need to be spread wider over our region to recognize that the benefits are widespread, but I think there is a strong reason for keeping the airport under the control of public funding because many of its benefits, the reasons for maintaining it, are for the value it brings to the community, not things seen on a spreadsheet. There is room at the airport to grow business revenues. It has been underutilized as a location for aviation businesses, but I am very concerned that if council proceeds with a full sale of the airport, we risk losing its true value. So my question to council is, if you proceed with the sale of the airport, can you not protect it from the new owners closing it as an airport? If we lose this airport, we will not get it back in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Our next public registrant is Mr. Brian Reese. Mr. Reese, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Just to give you a quick background here, I was employed at the Aviation Weather Station at Wyerton Airport for 10 years. And my wife, Wendy, was office administrator in the airport office while Doug Sykes was manager. And also later when Doug Sykes, Campbell Oakes, and Ron Fenton managed as a trio. I've been following the discussions around the future Wyerton-Keppel Airport for a considerable time now. And at no time can I remember anybody making any mention of the large investment, certainly a few $1 million, that various federal government agencies have at the airport. Number one, there's a 24-hour, 365-day weather station. This manned facility with its state-of-the-art equipment and highly trained staff supplies hourly and inter-hourly weather data to Environment Canada forecasters for regular regional forecasts, and also to NAV Canada forecasters for METARs, which are a special aviation weather package for commercial and recreational pilots, and in particular to those aircraft that pass through the east-west air corridor that runs over Wyerton. This weather station, along with several thousand designated stations around the world, transmits synoptic weather data packages every 6 hours that are fed into the World Meteorological Organization's network and yield a worldwide weather picture for meteorologists and climatologists. Two, the entire room below what is now the boardroom at the airport terminal building contains 2 rows of high-tech radio equipment that cover radio communications between operators at the Toronto Area Control Center at Toronto Pearson Airport and the hundreds of commercial, military, and private flights per day that go through the Wyerton sector of the air corridor I just mentioned. There are also 3 very large special platform antenna towers for the previously mentioned communications equipment that were installed about 12 years ago. These transmit the signals to and from the station, via the towers. The VORTAC, which is situated in the cone-shaped structure out beyond the runways, is a radio navigation system for commercial, private, and military aircraft. And another one, the radio repeater equipment and tower for Canadian Coast Guard Radio Sarnia, is situated on Wyerton Airport property. This system is monitored 24/7 for distress as well as normal radio traffic for commercial and recreational vessels in this section of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. Also, the equipment for the DSC, Digital Selective Calling System, which is an automatic vessel distress and calling system for commercial and recreational vessels, is also housed in the airport terminal building, and the antennas are mounted on the terminal building roof. And finally, the DGPS, or the Differential Global Positioning System, is a land-based system that enhances the accuracy of positioning signals coming in from the GPS satellites. It's also housed in the terminal building. So in the event this property sells or is closed down as an operating airport, none of this equipment can be just unplugged and moved down the street to another location and plugged in again. It's extremely important for aviation and marine safety that this equipment is available 24/7, 365. In other words, another complete system would have to be operational so that if the Wiarton system is taken down, the other system can take over immediately. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reese. Our next registrant is Miss Donna Saponis. Miss Saponis, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Burley and Deputy Mayor Carlton and councillors. I wanted to share some information that I had that relates to a survey that we conducted 2 years sequentially at an event held in Georgian Bluffs. And we were managing the event, and the purpose was twofold: was to learn a little bit more about the success of what people thought of the event. But in addition to that, we wanted to validate community support. So we did include 4 very basic questions to get a sense of the support for the airport. One of the things I want to touch on just before I get to the results of the survey is the importance of determining a sample size. Unlike some of the commentary that is listed in the proposal, it's very difficult to gauge the support of a population or any given group by reviewing some commentary that has been submitted, whether that be in the form of letters or whether that be in within an open-ended question in a survey. You do need to ask very specific questions and get them either to rank the level of importance or to answer yes or no, so that you can get a sense of the support or non-support for a given question or subject. And there's a little bit of calculation in terms of I have a background in marketing and research. There's calculators online, if you wish to find them, that give you an understanding of how to calculate a sample or what amount of surveys are necessary to have a valid response. This random sample is based on a sample that is determined, I guess, based on the level of confidence that you want from the results and the level of error that you're willing to take on. So we were looking at the number of surveys that we were able to accomplish based on the population size of Georgian Bluffs and South Bruce. That sample size, we really needed only 93 to 100 surveys to get a sufficient sample to represent the broader group. So that told us with 95% confidence level that the responses from our sample tell us with 95% certainty that the broader population is feeling the same way or they share the same sentiment. That sample also reflects an 11% margin of error. So for example, I'm just going to give you an example before I get into the actual stats. If 96 residents were asked if the airport is a good use of tax dollars, and if 85% said yes, statistically, that data suggests with certainty, with 95% certainty, that between 74% and 96%, that 11% plus or minus of the broader group would actually have the same sentiment. So that's just a little bit about the confidence levels of the data and the statistics when we're looking at them. And I'm going to share you some of the results. We asked, I have a slide that I shared with everyone in terms of the presentation that shows the distribution of the sample respondents. They are coming from across the region, and you can be sure that you're getting not only residents of South Bruce Peninsula and Georgian Bluffs, but you're getting residents from the region as well that are responding to this. So I'm going to get right into the results for sake of time here. The very first question of 4 that we asked them was to share with us what they felt the benefits of the Wiarton Keppel International Airport were. We provided a list, and we asked them to share with us which benefits they thought were important. And 68% chose all of the benefits, and 84% selected at least 5 of the benefits that were listed for the airport, which is a very extremely high level of acknowledging the benefits of the airport as we go forward. The next question we wanted to ask them was whether, the question, I'll read it to you, indicate on a scale of 1 to 5 how strongly you agree or disagree with this statement, that WKIA is an important element to the region's infrastructure that needs to be protected. Well, 89% of the respondents voted between 4 and 5. Now, when we look at a range between 1 and 5, 5 is absolutely I agree, and 4, my feeling is very strong about it. So we count up the number 4 and 5 that people chose. 89% of respondents. The public said that they found it to be a very important part of the infrastructure. And that grew 1.1% year over year. We had the survey in 2015 and again in 2016. If you break that down by residence, we asked them all to tell us their place of residence when they did the survey. Georgian Bluffs came to 87%, Grey County 88%, Northern Bruce Peninsula, this is where they indicated they lived, 46%, Owen Sound 94%, Saugeen Shores 88%, South Bruce Peninsula 87%. So no matter what area you look at, the numbers are very significant in terms of support. The next question we asked them,
Ms. Saponis, if I may just interrupt, this is your
Yes.
1-minute warning.
Okay, thank you. So the final 2 questions, whether or not it's a use of good tax dollars. We said WKA is funded by taxpayers as roads and sidewalks are. And do you think supporting the airport is a good use of tax dollars? 94% said yes in 2016, 91% in 2015. We asked if they felt it should remain as a public asset. 83% strongly believe that it should remain a public asset. So these are words from taxpayers. These are sentiments from taxpayers that are really sharing their thoughts on a public asset and whether it should remain a public asset. So I thought that this information would be of value to you as you embark on this very important decision on the future of the airport and whether it stays as a public asset or whether it is sold, because obviously it means quite a bit to the public, and I'll leave that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Saponis. Our next registrant is Mr. Peter Saponis.
I'm just going to use Donna's computer here because my phone has failed there. The battery ran out. But I'd like to address Mayor Burley, Deputy Mayor Carleton, and councillors. Thank you for letting me speak to this evening. I did submit something. I do have a question for the councillors and the mayor regarding the sale or proposed sale of this airport. First of all, I disagree that the airport should be sold, but I do agree in part that lands surplus to the airport should be sold. So I think what we should do personally is sell surplus lands so they could be used to fund capital expenditures at the airport. The concerns I have with selling the airport component is, would you sell Grey Road 1? Would you sell one of the bridges in Shallow Lake? And for what price? Well, that's basically the same thing as that you're selling this piece of infrastructure. The airport serves the community and is considered a fine piece of infrastructure, but somehow we've come across this notion that it should be a business, but it's infrastructure. Successful airports are considered infrastructure. Now, council is under the impression, under private ownership, that it will continue as an airport. That's false. That's a false belief. It'll go to the first numbered company, and then it'll go to the second numbered company, and it'll go to a third numbered company. If you look at developments in other areas of Ontario, they go through 3, 4 numbered companies, and sometimes they never are what they're said they're going to be. How can you control what will happen with these lands? Will it become a gravel pit? Will it become a landfill for the GTA? Or will it become a nuclear waste dump for... We never know. These are big thoughts. This is something to consider. So it continues to serve the community presently. And it should remain so. It's been that way for 73 years. Do we want to be recognized as the council that sold away the future? The councillors that gave away the airport? So selling the land surplus to the operation, I have a few questions here. What's the value? There's a piece of property, 20 acres, 21-acre lots, just north of the airport, sold over for 10 million, and yet you're willing to take 6 million, or maybe even $1. Would you accept $1 if it would take away your tax burden? This is ludicrous. So 20 acres, you have over 65 acres of land or water view lots there. Just think of the value there. What's the cost? What's the value of an established, certified airport with approaches? There's a certain cost to that. There's a benefit to that. What's the value of the leases? You're looking at $250 million to $500 million here, and you're willing to sell it for $6 million or $1 if you change the value? So, in closing, my suggestion is this was never structured correctly. If it was in private hands and they continued to run it as an airport, they would put a gatehouse at the bottom of the hill and you would come in and you'd have to pay to use it. If you had to be medically evacuated, it would be the same as the Highway 407. Thank you. You would receive a letter in the mail. It would say, thank you for using our airport, and here's your bill. Would it be $1? I don't think so, because they want to make money. The private people want to make money. So it may be $2. It may be $3,000 for using the airport facility. You have no control on that. Neither does the residents. My recommendation is put a gatehouse at the bottom of the hill. If you live in anything else but Georgian Bluffs, show us your license. Sorry, you're not available to use this facility. Or, yes, you can use this facility, but you'll have to pay. It was never structured correctly.
Mr. Saponis, this is your 30-second warning.
Thank you. Georgian Bluffs should structure it. I recommend set up an airport commission or airport board, give them a mandate to make money, or lower the costs, get some professionals on the board. That's what successful airports do. Pembroke does the same. Arnprior does the same. Simcoe Regional does the same. Rockville, all these airports have commissions. So consider your decision wisely, very carefully. You're stewards for this legacy. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, I see Councillor Barfoot has her hand up.
Councillor Barfoot, if you would like to go ahead, please do. Otherwise, we only have one registrant left. Councillor Barfoot, you're muted.
I just have a quick question for Mr. Saponis. Were you not on the Wyerton-Kepler International Airport Joint Municipal Service Board before?
That's absolutely correct, Councillor Barfoot, except I was fired. I was fired for volunteering my expertise from South Bruce Peninsula because I was in favor of the airport. Now I just can't believe it. I'll give you my background. I grew up in the area.
No, I was just curious.
No, I grew up in the area. I learned to fly in Wyerton. I went off for a professional career, and I retired as a 777 captain. But I understand the value of an airport and what it brings to the community. Yes, I sat on that board, but I was fired because I was in favor of the airport.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you
Mr.
for your
President.
answer.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So our final registrant this evening is Mr. Mike LeBaire. Mr. LeBaire, please go ahead.
Thank you, Brittany. My name is Mike LeBaire. I am the flight captain for COPA 68. And COPA is the organization that supports and promotes aviation in all of its forms. What I'd like to do quickly is to address 2 points that were made. I don't know about everybody else, but I did not in any form get notification of this sale until I started to talk to people around the area. And the papers that you mentioned, one of them was not the one that I get. And we do not follow Facebook, so we got, and I would suggest that there were a whole pile of people that didn't get the notification. Secondly, the capital that was mentioned in that budget said $2.5 million or something, and I didn't see anything there that said that the federal government had been approached for grants that are available for airport upgrades. That's disgusting. So I'm writing this letter as a result of council decision to declare the airport as surplus and to attempt to place it up for sale without consultation with taxpayers and those organizations who have vested interest, by example, general aviation, commercial aviation, military, Coast Guard, Lands and Forests, and Orange Medical Evac. We also find that the timing of these actions have been carried out in an unacceptably short span. With such a short time to the next election, it would have been more responsible to allow the public their input. It is our information that some councillors have threatened to shut the airport down without due consideration of the financial welfare effect on the taxpayers and organizations who require the airport for medical evacuation, recreational aviation, general aviation, commercial aviation, police, Coast Guard, and military. There's a couple of examples of that just this past weekend. It has come to our attention that some members of council have referred to general aircraft owners as rich people and their toys. This could be said for those who own and drive a $60,000 pickup truck or an equivalently priced BMW. Aviation, especially in a small town, requires the equivalent facilities as do cars and trucks. This points to a need of our local township councillors to take the time and effort to understand an issue before trying to make a decision. Shutting down an airport is tantamount to plowing under Highway 10 and 6, County Road 18, Highway 26, including publicly owned parking lots. We have information that some taxpayers as well as some councillors have deemed the cost of operation of the airport as too expensive. Of this, council has not been honest with the actual cost to taxpayers. On the basis of financial and population data from Township of Georgian Bluffs and local counties to be in the order of $6.50 to approximately $18 per taxpayer per year. This equates similarly to the cost to sponsor the library in previous years or the cost of Tim Hortons meal. Georgian Bluffs has spent considerable money within the 3 previous years on consulting companies, which seem that the results were totally ignored. It seems that there are a number of councillors who would for no known reason, rather shut down the airport than understand and work with airport requirements. Georgian Bluffs have failed to keep up with the needed repairs and airport upgrades. It is our understanding that the federal government has allotted money for airport infrastructure. What they require is a plan which Georgian Bluffs have not requested or provided. There are aircraft owners in the local area who have tried to encourage additional hangar space on the airport, which would bring in much needed revenue and would attract more activity to this airport. Georgian Bluffs have not made any effort to provide these facilities for the pilots as required. Georgian Bluffs have not taken full advantage of volunteer groups such as COPA, FOTA, to assist free of charge with facility cleaning, grounds maintenance, and operating events that would attract more aircraft and also local taxpayers to the airport. COPA has been put on many events aimed at attracting young people to take part in aviation, such as pilots, aircraft mechanics, aeronautical engineers, and airport operations. Wyerton has industrial property that could attract businesses related to aviation that could be purchased or leased. Selling the airport to private interests does not guarantee that it will be available to aviation in the next 100 years. Examples of this are Maple, King City, Greenbank, Buttonville, to name a few.
Mr. LeBaire, this is your 30-second warning.
In a 2016 survey, the COPA
Could you try again?
COPA an auto event found that statistically the majority of local taxpayers wanted the airport and to remain under government control. To all councillors, remember, where did the pilot of your next Hawaii trip gain his or her license? Canadian airports serve to train our future pilots, which are in serious shortage. Wyerton Airport is an ideal facility for pilot training and improving skills. The next time you or your kin need a trauma hospital, you may have to suffer a 2.5 to 3 hour ambulance ride. The next time there is a forest fire on the peninsula, the firefighters may have no staging facilities. The airport serves the community as an evacuation point in case of nuclear or natural disasters. The next time you use Amazon, think of how you got your packages. The next time you complain to the idiot drivers on Highway 6, the police aircraft may have lost a staging facility. It is incumbent upon all councillors who are making decisions on behalf of taxpayers to make decisions and act based on knowledge as opposed to personal preference. Lastly, the assets such as airports belong to the taxpayer, not to the councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LeBaire. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes our public registrants this evening. So I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I would like to thank all the participants this evening. Is there any comments from council? Councillor Colburn, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. And I guess what I'm asking is it appropriate for me to direct a particular question to one of the speakers at this time?
I'd say yes, it is. Just keep it general, please.
Well, actually, it's going to be quite specific. I would like to ask a question of Ms. Saponis, if she's still online with us. And while we're figuring out if Dana is still here, I did want to also add my thanks for the delegations who came here today to present their points of view.
Go ahead with your question.
Thank you. Here. Awesome. Thank you, Dana. I appreciated hearing about the survey that was done, and I also appreciated you calculating the confidence intervals and getting at some of the statistical significance of the survey. I did note, though, that you didn't talk about randomization of the survey, and I may have missed it. My understanding is that the survey took place at the air and auto event.
Well, the question
and
is.
So, I just wondered if you collected any socioeconomic data regarding the survey participants and did an analysis to demonstrate that those folks who participated in the survey would indeed be representative of our population of Georgian Bluffs. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. Thank you. We did, the question we asked was really where they resided. So we were looking at the statistics from a geographic level. So that was what directed us to realizing that they are your population. And it was not at the event that they did the survey. They were provided an invitation at the event, and then they went online on their own schedule and submitted the data.
Thank you, Donna. Councillor Colburn, did that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
Well, I really don't need to. My question was exactly what Councillor Colburn's was. I was just a bit curious about sort of some of the statistical significance because my understanding was that the questionnaire was distributed at the Air and Auto Show. So although the information from the auto show would be good, I think we might have a concern to say, you know, of the Georgian Bluffs air enthusiasts that attended of the air enthusiasts at the show, 90% of them thought, or whatever the overwhelming percentage was. So I thought, it's a bit questionable about. Councillor Colburn did a much better job talking about statistics than me, but thanks very much.
May I just respond one brief item on that? If you take a look at the presentation deck that was provided to all the councillors, you will see that the pilots are noted in the participant list. So the pilots were a very small percentage. The event attracted a lot of car enthusiasts. And just really, it was generally very much positioned as a family event. So a lot of locals and people from within the region. So you can actually take a look at the fact that there's a very small number of pilots that actually participated in the survey.
Thank you very much. Follow up, Councillor Thompson.
Sorry, so many buttons to push here. I think that I want to thank everyone that's taken the time to come today and put a lot of work into this. I won't speak for all the councillors. It's really difficult when you are. This is a big decision, and I guess it would be easy to personalize some of the comments about not taking it seriously or information to support. I don't know where the information would come that councillors don't care or want to close, but I mean, I certainly would urge you to seek those councillors out individually and have a conversation with them, because I certainly can't imagine that. I haven't heard that from any of my colleagues, short shrifting a decision like this. But what I would urge you to do is, if you've heard that, seek the person out directly, because it would certainly be it would be really unfortunate if people thought that we made decisions without consideration or without research and evidence. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate everybody coming. It has been a really big decision. It's been a really big item for the 18 years I've been here involved with the airport, and I appreciate everyone's input. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Colburn, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to also note Ms. Dumans, I'm sorry, Ms. Dumans, I'm mispronouncing your name. I wanted to make note of her comments regarding her interpretation of the financial criteria, or the financial factor in the criteria we're looking at. That wasn't my interpretation. So I wonder if staff can comment on that either now or next time we meet to discuss the airport sale, because those we're sort of seeing those criteria for the first time, and I don't believe that they're necessarily carved in stone, but certainly they're part of the recommendation. So Mr. Mayor, I'm just not sure where to take that from here, and I don't want to take up any more of our time on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Colburn. that is a question I'm quite sure that staff will certainly be looking into. And Madam Clerk, I see your hand up. Can you put more to it, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I will likely direct some of these comments to our Director of Finance, Cassandra Rocca. It was our intention by including this part of the evaluation criteria to appropriately communicate that whatever the sale process ends up concluding as, that process should relieve the township of all financial burdens associated with owning this airport, including the operating and capital expenses that our Director of Finance has outlined this evening. And I would ask our Treasurer to further comment on that.
Go ahead, Cassie, you there?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in reference to that, when we're talking about financial burdens, we're not talking about recouping past costs. So what we've already spent, we've spent. So the financial burdens we're trying to relieve from that criteria are future costs. So in no way are we saying, you know, if we don't get $3 million, we're not going to consider that offer. But what we are saying is any offer that we receive will have to alleviate any future financial burdens. So I hope that clarifies that criteria for the group.
Thank you, Cassie, for that explanation. I see Councillor Pringle. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There, yeah, mine's just more so a comment to all the folks that have been on here today. There's been some great information come across again today. The biggest challenge, I think, and I'm speaking personally on my own behalf here, for the last 3 years that I've been on council, this has been a huge concern, the airports and where we're going. I am a person, and I've been very vocal about it too. I would love to see that airport carry on and move forward. I think where we've been caught is we've asked both Bruce County, we've asked Grey County, we've asked other townships to help us out, and nobody's supporting us. And I think where we're getting caught is we can see the big picture down the road that we're going to have to spend a pile of money here, and we're the ones getting left holding the bag. We've looked at trying to run flights out of the airport, and we're not getting, well, we didn't get the support we needed there either. Again, I appreciate all that information, and we are working on it. This isn't something we've just decided, you know what, let's get rid of it. I don't know, again, echoing what Ryan had mentioned there, that you know, councillors just want to close it. I don't believe at the end of the day, we just want to bury the airport. We want the best outcome for the township. And that's all we're really after. We are a group of 7 really trying to do the best we can for the township here. And we're just weighing our options. So that's all. That's my comment.
Thank you, Councillor Pringle. And I see your hand up. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the response from staff on this, but I would ask that if that's really your intent, that you rewrite some of these financial criteria that you're asking for, because it clearly infers that the expectations that you've suggested council can use before even considering a deal include a lot of those other costs. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Anne. I'm quite sure staff have heard your comments, and we'll certainly take that into advisement. I believe Councillor Barfoot, I see your hand up.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple comments here. I was on Keppel Township when we acquired the airport. I remember going to Toronto and hearing all the speeches, and Larry Miller, I believe, was the reeve of Keppel at that time. We were so thrilled to acquire something like that. I don't think anyone ever thought it could be such a huge taxpayer drain as we've seen. When we purchased the airport from Wyerton, it's a well-known fact, I was not in favor of that, because I've always felt, and I agree with a lot of you people, it is a regional asset. But if it's a regional asset, it's also should be recognized as a regional liability. And some of the people that it's benefiting, and I'm not going to name any names, but there is a couple of municipalities that have benefited and are still benefiting greatly from that airport. And I don't want to hear any more speculation on 3 million or 5 million. everybody should be keeping an open mind, because right now, that's mere speculation. We don't know. We don't know if there's one offer or if there's going to be 20 offers. We don't know the conditions in those offers. So let's not get too twisted, and let that fog up our judgment on this. Let's just wait and see what happens.
Thank you, Councillor Barfoot. I believe I see Peter Taponis. Your hand's up.
Yes, Mayor Barfoot, Mayor Burley, I'm still running in the past here. No, I'd just like to address the council one more time. When I sat on the airport board, I felt it wasn't structured correctly. And of course, we're going back here, but if we look at successful airports and successful municipalities and ones that have airports, if we could just have a look. I understand it's a regional airport. You understand it's a regional airport, but all of these other townships aren't contributing. I understand that. How do we get them to do that? Well, if you sell it and it remains an airport, everybody will pay. Even Georgian Bluffs residents will pay, and they will pay dearly. It won't be the $1.16. It'll be, if you need to get medically evacuated, it could be as much as $3,000 for using the airport. So why do we have to sell it in order to make the other towns pay? Can we not just structure it so, okay, this is a Georgian Bluffs asset. It's a piece of infrastructure that we own, and if you want to use it, show us your driver's license, where you reside, and say, oh, thank you very much. Come on into our facility, but you'll have to pay an additional charge. The same way as you contribute to other library boards because you do not have your own library, they don't contribute to your airport. I grew up in Holland Township. Our township didn't contribute to the Owen Sound Library. In 1974, I had to pay $15 for a library card. That isn't any different than what we have right now. So set a gatehouse up at the bottom, say, look, we'd like you to come to use our facility, but you're going to have to pay to use it.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
Does council have any other comments? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Barfoot.
No, just a quick question, Mr. Mayor. Everybody keeps referring to Agent Orange. Is there not enough land space up at the hospital that a helicopter pad could be put in there? I don't know. It's just food for thought.
Thank you, Councillor Barfoot. Thank you for your comments. Does council have any other comments? Can't see none. Whoa, sorry, I have a Deputy Mayor sitting beside me. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I would just like to respond to Councillor Barfoot's comment about the orange helicopters. Not all orange flights are by helicopter. Some of them are fixed wing. Therefore, you need a runway for those. So, and there's more at times of the fixed wing than helicopter. So there's varying uses there.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Carleton. I see no other questions from council. So I'm going to thank you again for all those that participated this evening. On behalf of council and staff, we appreciate your comments and encourage you to remain active in the council process. Council will receive offers for the purpose of the facility until October 14th, 2021. If there's no further discussion, I will now call for the vote on the motion before us.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's Brian Reese. Could I just make a quick comment here in answer to Councillor Barfoot's question?
Quickly, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, sure thing. You were talking about the Wyerton Hospital as a possible landing place for helicopters. Everybody thinks the helicopters can just go straight up and straight down. They can't. Helicopters have to have some horizontal motion, either forward, sideways, whatever. Getting into the hospital area in bad weather would be difficult. There's trees around the airport. It's sort of down in a hollow. Helicopters do need some a fair amount of open land to get in and out safely. I won't go into the mechanics of why they just can't go straight up and down, but it would be a little bit dicey. Let's put it that way.
Thank you, Brian. If there's no other comments from council, I would like to call for a vote on the motion before us. A show of hands, all in favor, please. Thank you. Recorded vote has been asked for.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, the deputy mayor has requested that a recorded vote be taken. And just for clarity, the motion that is currently on the floor reads as follows. That report LEG 2021-28 sale of Wyerton Keppel International Airport be received for information, and that all comments submitted during the public meeting be received for information, and that the evaluation criteria as included in this report form a part of the evaluation process.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Please go ahead.
Okay, so a recorded vote has been requested on the motion before us. If there's no further discussion, I will call the vote.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, may I just ask a quick question?
Go ahead, Councillor Colburn.
As the motion pertains to the question regarding the financial criteria, I just want to be sure that we're all clear that we're not talking about a specific dollar amount, but that we're removing ourselves in the sale of the property of any financial encumbrances as stated by our Director of Finance. Am I correct in understanding that?
Yes, you are, Councillor Colburn.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when I call your name, please indicate your vote. Councillor Carol Barfoot. Councillor Barfoot, you are muted.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. As amended under the Agenda 3, Council will now consider Bylaw 2021-66, Agenda Item 15.2.3, to approve the sale of Wyerton Keppel International Airport. The recommendation is that Bylaw 2021-066, being the bylaw to approve the sale of lands and facility known as Wyerton Keppel International Airport, in accordance with Bylaw 83/2007, be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Councillor Pringle. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Sorry, I was voting for the to put it on the floor.
Oh, okay. If there's no discussion on the motion before us, show of hands, all in favor, please. That motion is carried. We know delegations. We've been sitting for over an hour and a half. I'll ask, does council need to have a break for a few minutes or not? Is that a yes? Councillor Pringle, I realize you have to leave.
Thank you.
So council doesn't want to have a break. Councillor Barfoot?
Take 5 minutes, eh?
Okay, if that's the will of council, we'll take 5 minutes and Councillor Pringle has left the meeting. Okay, Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk, are we back from our break now that I'm not muted? Councillor Barfoot, can you hear me? Councillor Colburn?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson? Councillor Colburn?
Councillor Thompson and Councillor Coburn, when you are back at your computers, please re-enable your video feeds so we know you're with us.
We can't proceed until we have a quorum of council. Councillor Colburn, are you there?
I am.
Okay, good. We have a quorum of council now. Councillor Thompson? So I think since we have a quorum, I'm going to proceed with the meeting. We have no delegations tonight. Consent agenda. Is there any member of council who wish to pull any item on the consent agenda? Councillor Colburn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to pull the Climate Action Committee meetings of August 24th for a quick discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Colburn. If there's no other item, the recommendation is that the Council of Township of Georgian Bus adopt a consent agenda for information as circulated less 9.2.1. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, please. All in favor? The motion is carried. Excuse me. Councillor Colburn, you wish to talk to that item now, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During the meeting of August 24th, Climate Action Committee, it was the request of that committee that at this meeting of council, I pull out and emphasize for council a particular document. In those minutes, it's called The Importance of Trees, and it was developed by committee member Dr. John Anderson. It's a document that I think really well explains the importance of mature trees for climate change and capturing carbon. And the importance of trees in many other ways as well. So I think one of the more salient points in that document states that cutting down a mature tree requires planting more than 100 saplings, young saplings, and that requires a lot more land in order to replace the same amount of carbon capture. So what we want to emphasize, what the committee would like to emphasize is that it's crucial that we do all we can to prevent cutting down mature trees, and that is central to building a resilient and healthy community. So I would just, I guess, encourage council members to pull out that document, The Importance of Trees, if you haven't had a chance to read it over, and take a look at that document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Colburn, for bringing it to our attention. I'm quite sure everyone has pulled it out and keep it handy. So I'll move on for agenda then. We're down to correspondence. Our first piece of correspondence is from Jamie Walpole, sponsor support of the Festival of Northern Lights. Madam Clerk, did you want to speak to this, or I realize that we have supported Northern Lights in past years for the same amount of $250, and you care to speak to it, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can certainly speak to it. As you've mentioned, the township has supported the Festival of Northern Lights in the past. Specifically, our last donation was in their bronze category, being the $250 donation. So their prepping for this year's event, which I believe will commence November 20th to be officially released once confirmed, but I believe it will be November 20th this year. It will be in coordination with their Santa Claus Parade event. So they are looking for sponsorships at this time and have requested support of the township. So should council be so inclined, we may move to support this initiative in the same amount that we've done in the past, being the $250 donation, or should council wish to provide more, we can certainly investigate what those options are.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'm going to, before I go to the Deputy Mayor, I'll read this recommendation I have before me.
Yes, you can definitely read that. It's just indicating support for the $250 donation, so council's aware.
At least it'll put it on the floor and then we can have a discussion. The recommendation is that the council hereby approves donation of $250 to the 2021 Festival of Northern Lights. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Deputy Mayor Carleton. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor, you had your hand up.
I did, because it seems to me when we discussed this last year, maybe we were running a little later, but we were asking if our signage or something could be improved upon at the festival. And I do support the festival. I just think we need kind of a better signage or something there. So if we could look into that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Maybe picture of the mayor would, no? Okay, no, your point's well taken. If there's no other discussion on the motion before us, show of hands, all in favor, please. The motion is carried. Our next piece of correspondence is from the municipality of Meaford, ITFD partnership update. Madam Treasurer, you care to speak to this? Cassie?
Sorry, yes, thank you. So as council is aware, about a year ago, a report was taken to both councils looking for direction on whether we wanted to maintain the ITFD relationship, meaning the dual ownership, or explore a service agreement. Meaford deferred that decision for a year, so that report was brought back to their council, and they have indicated that they wish to maintain their relationship, meaning retain 25% ownership. And what we will do now is work to amend and create a new agreement that better facilitates the ITFD operations. As council may recall, as part of our report, we talked about some of the concerns with how the ITFD was currently structured in the management perspective of that department. So we're looking to draft a new agreement that will address those concerns while maintaining the dual ownership. So we will provide further reports to council as we move through revising that agreement going forward.
Thank you, Cassie. Does council have any questions? And Ms. Rocca, I assume these conversations will start soon, or?
So staff actually met with representatives from Meaford today. So they've already commenced, and we will provide updates to council as we move through the process.
Thank you, Cassie. So there's nothing more than that. I'll move on with our agenda. We're down to committee reports. The recommendation here is that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on September 15th, 2021 be adopted, including recommendation COW 2021-93 to COW 2021-99. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carleton, second by Councillor Colburn. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. Okay, I'm down to staff reports. A second here to catch up. Our first recommendation is that the report LEG 2021-29 staff appreciation initiative be received for information, and that all staff be provided 1 day in lieu to be used by the end of 2021, and that said day in lieu be applied to a full day closure of the Township Administrator's office on December 24th, 2021 and December 31st, 2021. Madam Clerk, floor is yours.
Mr. Mayor, if we could just have a mover and a seconder.
It's moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Barfoot. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as detailed in my report, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, most, if not all, staff appreciation events over the past 2 years have been either postponed or canceled due to gathering restrictions. Now, if we can identify one silver lining out of the COVID-19 pandemic, it is the highlight of the importance of mental health, both within our professional settings as well as our personal settings. So therefore, highlighting the importance of staff appreciation and acknowledging the efforts of our dedicated staff here at the township. Now, we acknowledge staff that this pandemic and the past couple of years have not only been hard on township staff, they've been hard on the public, they've been hard on council. We've all had to develop new ways of functioning in our daily lives and had to pivot our service levels to maintain appropriate levels of service at the township. In response to this, and due to the cancellation of our staff appreciation events, the senior management team is recommending that a staff initiative project be approved in coordination with council to provide all of our staff with 1 day in lieu. For township administration office staff, this day will be applied to the remaining halves of Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. As council will recall, the office is scheduled to be closed effective noon on both of those days. This extra time would be applied to the remaining halves of those days, being the mornings, therefore closing the office for the entirety of the day and providing our staff with some needed family time over the holiday season. To maintain equity throughout staff and recognizing that our facilities and operations staff have to maintain services outside of regular operating hours, we are recommending that they be provided 1 day in lieu to be used as they see fit in coordination with their supervisor prior to the end of this year. This initiative will show staff appreciation in a tangible way that all of staff can benefit from and appreciate. So through you, Mr. Mayor, we are respectfully requesting that council approve providing 1 day in lieu to all of staff as a one-time appreciation measure out of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. A fantastic recommendation. Before I open the floor up for council for questions, I would like to record vote on this motion too, please. I'm open the floor up now to any comments from council. Councillor Colburn, go ahead.
No comment really regarding the motion, just a comment to staff in appreciation for all of the extra hours and effort they've put in since the pandemic started. It does not go unnoticed, and it is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Colburn. Councillor Thompson, I see your hand.
Very similar comments from me. I think that I think it's an excellent idea. I think it's a good initiative. I think many other organizations where people are serving the public are doing something similar to show some appreciation and consideration for the challenging times and the difficulty to provide service and the perseverance. So I think it's a good recommendation, and again, my appreciation to staff.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. We do have fantastic staff in this municipality, and anything we can do is much appreciated. So, Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when I call your name, please indicate your vote in regards to the motion on the floor. Councillor Carol Barfoot. Councillor Barfoot, you are muted.
Definitely for.
Thank you. Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
4.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you very much. Moving on to human resources. The recommendation is that report HR 2021-05 job evaluation be received for information, and that the Ward and Upgrove job evaluation and job description proposal also be received for information, and that council direct staff to proceed with engaging Ward and Upgrove to complete the job evaluation job description process as outlined in the attached proposal. Someone to move, put it on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Barfoot. And I see our HR manager is present, so Madam HR Manager, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So through you to council. So as you all, I'm sure, remember, we engaged Pesci and Associates to do an organizational review for the township. So one of the recommendations that came out of that review, and I'll read it for you, was to review and confirm current job titles, job descriptions, and overall responsibility and accountability of several positions and make necessary adjustments to those positions as determined by a job evaluation exercise, including the following positions: Operations IT Coordinator, Building and Planning Assistant, Road Supervisor, and Facilities Coordinator. Now, since then, senior management has also identified a couple of other positions that should be evaluated, one being the Senior Planner. It has not been evaluated to date, and the Utility Coordinator has been identified as having significant changes to that role. Now, the reason that we're coming before council to request this is twofold. First of all, workload restraints for the HR department, myself, and the fact that the township currently does not have a trained job evaluation committee to do this work internally. So given that, staff are requesting that we be directed to proceed with engaging Ward and Upgrove to complete the job evaluation and job description process as outlined in the attached proposal. So I am here if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Janet. Does council have any questions on this motion before us? Councillor Colburn, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my understanding is that this kind of review was just done in 2018. So I just wonder, Janet, if you could clarify for us, other than the job classifications that you've listed, why we would be doing this review so soon after that one, and are all positions? I imagine, I'm going to assume all positions will be considered in this assessment. And the reason I ask this is that, as one of our members of the public said earlier, we hire a lot of consultants, and some of it is necessary. We don't have the expertise in-house. We don't, for example, have some of the more technical expertise sometimes. But we do have an HR manager and a senior management team, and I sometimes wonder if some of these things can be done in-house. And I also wonder if we should be delaying this until our permanent CAO is hired and in place. Sorry, Janet, I've thrown a lot of comments and questions at you as per usual with me. Do you want to have a go at that?
Sure. And if I don't answer anything, just please repeat. That's not a problem. So the first 4 positions, the Operations IT Coordinator, the Building and Planning Assistant, and the Road Supervisor, Facilities Coordinator, they were all identified in the org review as requiring a look at the positions. I cannot speak to the rationale behind that, as unfortunately I wasn't here when that was done. I'm not sure if the clerk or the Director of Finance can make a comment on that piece. And then since then, we have just identified that the senior planner has never been evaluated and should be, and the utilities coordinator, there are significant changes. Now, significant changes is new positions or significant changes are the only reasons why you would do a job evaluation on a position. Sorry, now what was the rest of your questions, Councillor Coburn?
Thank you.
Oh, in-house.
In-house.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so currently, I do have experience with job evaluation, but there is not an existing committee right now within the township. And I would agree with you. I think that it's probably something that should be looked at in the future. We could hire, a consultant to do training for staff. I don't feel like I would be the right person to do that training. I think it needs to come from a consultant so that, I don't want to miss anything. So right now, as it sits, we do not have that. And just because of workload and everybody's workload based on, I think, COVID and, not having a CAO, everybody is just extremely busy, and doing this off the side of a desk would be a very difficult task at this point in time. And given that it was a recommendation of the consultants that we get this done, especially for those top 4 positions, we feel that we're doing a disservice to those employees to not get this done as soon as we can.
Thank you, Janet. I'm going to turn it over to their acting CEO, Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to build upon our HR manager's comments, as she referenced, these recommendations came out of the recently completed organization and compensation review. And out of the interviews completed with staff, all members of staff throughout that process, these positions were identified as requiring further evaluation, as these specific employees have identified, I don't want to say completion, I guess completion of tasks beyond their job descriptions, thereby requiring a job evaluation to be completed. Now, as Janet has mentioned, we are looking to facilitate this in-house. I think that's a future goal for us by establishment of a committee that would be overseen by the HR manager. Our intention here this evening, by requesting this to be completed externally, is simply to finally complete the organization and compensation review process. Council initiated this process in 2020 and has been ongoing ever since. Therefore, we would respectfully request that we wrap this up. And in doing this externally, we then have the resources to ensure that this process is completed and completed effectively prior to the end of this year, therefore turning 2020 over on a new leaf.
Thank you, Madam CEO. Clerk, hopefully that answers your question, Councillor Coburn. If there's no other questions on the motion before us, I'll ask for a show of hands. All in favor of the motion? I believe it's carried. Okay, so we're moving on. Madam Clerk, do we have any public questions tonight?
We do not.
Okay, we're down to bylaws. We have no zoning bylaws. We're down to other bylaws. The first recommendation is that bylaw 2021-65, being a bylaw to adopt municipal road construction minimum standard policy, OPS 2021-01, be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed to seal of the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carleton, second by Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. We've already dealt with bylaw 66, so I'm moving on to bylaw 67. The recommendation is that bylaw 2021-65 being a bylaw representing construction, demolition.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, we're now on bylaw 2021-067.
Yes. Sorry, did I say something different? Oh, I can't count. Okay, we're down to bylaw. The recommendation is that bylaw 2021-67 being a bylaw representing construction, demolition, changes, use permits, and inspections pursuant to the Ontario Building Code Act SO 192 C23 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and entered into the bylaw book. Someone to move, put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Colburn. Any discussion on the motion before us? See none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. We're now down to bylaw 68. Bylaw 2021-68 being a bylaw to amend procedural bylaw 2019-125, adopt policy COU01-2021, recording of council and committees of council closed meetings be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, seal of the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? See none? A show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. We're down to unfinished business. We have none. We're down to new business. I think I'll deal with this first one first, the recommendation. The recommendation is that whereas Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs enact procedural bylaw 2019-125 at their meeting on November 20th, 2019 to govern the procedures of council and committees, and whereas Section 20 of said bylaw defines regulations and procedures for delegations by public to council and committee of council, and whereas council deems it necessary to strengthen delegation procedures to provide further clarity to the public and council. Now therefore, the Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs hereby supports amendment procedure bylaw 2019-125 to include procedures for governing delegations which wish to present to the same discussion topic more than twice, and that staff are hereby directed to prepare a report with suggested wording to facilitate this amendment. I believe this was a notice of motion by Councillor Barfoot. So, Councillor Barfoot, you wish to speak to this? Oh, sorry. I'll ask for a mover and seconder, please. Put it on the floor. You want us to move that, Carol? Okay, moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Councillor Colburn. Go ahead, Carol.
It's just if we had delegations coming into the township office, we have regulations that, you know, that if 3 or 4 people are, they should be doing one presentation instead of 3 or 4 presentations. The last meeting was someone was doing a presentation. That presentation has been bounced around so much in the last 3 or 4 months. It's, you know, we've got so much important stuff, you know, and that person's concerns are important. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is it's a waste of time to be listening to the same stuff. And if you declare that you're doing a presentation on A, don't be wandering off and sneaking in the second presentation on, we'll say, subject B. There has to be more regulations during these presentations.
Thank you, Councillor Barfoot. Does any other council member have any comments on the motion before us? Deputy Mayor Carlton.
I guess I'm a little concerned that we're trying to limit the residents' ability to come and speak to us. And I think we've had other instances where residents are coming and we're maybe more in favor of listening to them. And it's almost like we're saying, if you're bringing something forward that we don't want to hear again and again, we'll forget it, go away, we're not listening. And I'm just a little afraid that partly we used to have committee structure where people could come to and then that would be brought forward to council. They don't have that committee structure, so they now have to come to either council as a whole or committee as a whole. So I'm just afraid of restricting residents' ability to come forward and speak to us about a topic that they feel very strongly about. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any comments from the clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to note that the last line of this proposed motion directs staff, essentially myself, to write a report with suggested wording to strengthen the clauses as included in our procedure bylaw as it currently stands. Now, in doing this research, I would also seek to collaborate with other clerks as to what their procedure bylaws say and ensure that if strengthening our procedure bylaw is the intention of this council, that we do so in a way that doesn't restrict all delegations throughout the township. So I think we can do so in a way that will both appease council as well as assist the public in participating in a structured manner.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Colburn, I see your hand was up. Is it down now?
It was up and it is down after hearing our clerk's response, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. I had the same kind of trepidation as did Deputy Mayor Carleton. We've heard the same messages from several people regarding different topics like the airport, like the biodigester, like speed limits. And so I do want to be careful that our wording doesn't preclude people from coming forward with concerns, and that we apply those rules in a fair and consistent way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Colburn. We look forward to that report coming back from the clerk. Madam Clerk, other comments or no? Okay, if there's no other comments from council, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us. The motion is carried. Moving on for agenda, we're down to, this is a notice of motion from Councillor Colburn, so I'll read the motion before me first. Whereas Section 44 of Planning Act RSO 1990 provides that any municipal council may, by bylaw, establish a committee of adjustment or no less than 3 members, and whereas the same provides authorities to the committee to approve applications of a consent or minor variance, and whereas Council of the Township of Georgian Bus has established a committee of adjustment, adopted procedures, and appointed members, and whereas it is best practice a committee of adjustment be formed of citizen appointees rather than elected officials. Now, therefore, the Council of the Township of Georgian Bus hereby supports amending the existing committee structure to appoint committee representation to the Township Committee of Adjustments and bylaw 19/2011 to establish procedures for committee of adjustment be reviewed and updated in conjunction with the amended structure, and that this new structure be in place for 2022-26 terms of council. Councillor Colburn, you're going to move that motion put on the floor, and I need a seconder. I believe it's second by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Colburn, you want to speak to this?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, because I have brought my rationale back to council on this matter twice now, and the rationale remains the same. It is a composition of committee of adjustment that works, a model that works. Other municipalities use it. I think it reduces the number of meetings that councillors go to. And it puts a little more authority into the hands of our citizens. I also think it's a method of increasing our citizen engagement in the process. So I, for one, am in favor of moving to a model of committee of adjustment that has appointed community members on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Colburn. I agree with your way of thinking 100%. I will not support this motion myself because I think it's something that should be dealt with the new council, and that's my thoughts on it. Does council have any other comments? Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only comment would be from the perspective that I see is normally these committee meetings do not go very long. And I think trying to get citizen engagement to do all the background reading and everything for a 15-minute meeting is going to be difficult. And I think we need to be cognizant of that. I know that in most municipalities, the Committee of Adjustment is consisting of only residents of the municipality and not of council as a whole, and I can see the advantage to that. My concern is the length of those meetings and the frequency. It's going to be difficult to get citizens to agree to do that. So just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Good comments. Councillor Colburn, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would argue that we won't know how difficult it is to get folks to sit on that committee until we put the offer out there. Further, we can leave it till the council of next term, but the pace at which these kinds of things tend to move in council, it'll be still on the table for the following term of council. And I would argue also that for a 15-minute reading, it's going to take citizens the same amount of time to read and prepare for that meeting as it does for us. So, yeah, I am in support of this, and I suppose that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Colburn. You still haven't convinced me yet, but Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
I'm curious about, so since I've been thinking about this since I knew it was going to come up, I've sort of explored sort of the opposing models in my mind, and I've wondered, is there an opportunity for us to test it? I look at somewhere like Saugeen Shores. So I think Saugeen Shores employs a citizen engaged committee of adjustment, and they seem to be doing pretty well with development. I think I'm interested to see if there's a way of testing this. Failing that, if it's a choice of going with one or the other, I think I'm leaning towards supporting this and letting our volunteers in the community become more engaged in our decision making.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Deputy Mayor Carleton, go ahead.
So I went to 2 of the OCA seminars and spoke to people from other municipalities who did do it with a total citizen complement. I think the expectation was always that where we as council may be more familiar with the municipality and such, with those committees, they expected as a committee they would go out to actually look at each property. So there's extra time and travel time involved there. And I think we need to also make sure there's a compensation package that would go with that for them.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm not saying I'm not for involving our ratepayers in the Committee of Adjustment. I'm 100% for that. I still feel that it's not the appropriate time to do it.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. I wonder if you want to pass the chair off to the Deputy Mayor if you wish to supply an opinion on the matter. I just wonder in terms of protocol if that's more appropriate.
No, Councillor Colburn, I won't offer an opinion. I'll just ask for a recorded vote of the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I can definitely take a recorded vote. It sounds as though, if I may, council may not be prepared to make a decision on this motion here this evening. It seems as though maybe council needs more information to understand how this structure would be implemented at the township, specifically as the Deputy Mayor has mentioned. What will the remuneration policies look like? How will we develop the advertising structure to ensure that people are engaged and know that this is a possibility, and potentially options to compare structures throughout Ontario and see how we differ currently. So should council be in favor of a staff report, we can certainly take this motion back via a deferral and look at options for implementation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Burford, I believe I've seen your hand up.
Yeah, I just have a quick question, playing devil's advocate here. So an application goes before Committee of Adjustment, which is made up of ratepayers. Then it comes to council. Council doesn't agree with it. So what happens then? And, you know, I have all faith in our planning staff making the recommendations for us on these things. The biggest problem I have with Committee of Adjustment meetings is they're only 10 or 15 minutes long. That is a waste of time and a waste of taxpayers' money. So, you know, I have mixed emotions on this.
Thank you, Councilor. But Madam Clerk, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a point of clarity, Committee of Adjustment is convened to approve applications for consent or minor variance. That authority is delegated to them through the Planning Act. Council approves amendments to zoning bylaws. Now, I understand where that confusion comes because in most circumstances where there's an application for a consent or a minor variance, it's often paired with a zoning bylaw amendment. And if I may be so bold, this is a reason as to why council may consider separating the Committee of Adjustment from the council horseshoe, as when the same members form both committees, it tends to muddy the waters essentially as to who is approving what. So, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would recommend that council defer this motion so staff can prepare a report to better detail how we see this structure being implemented. And at that time, council can indicate their support or non-support of this initiative.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would the council agree to what the clerk is suggesting, that we pull this motion and ask for a report to come back from our clerk? Councilor Barfoot?
Good idea. I'll
Okay.
make that motion.
Madam Clerk, do we need a motion or just a?
That is correct. It will be a motion to defer and a direction to staff to prepare a informational report for presentation at a future meeting. And if I may, Councillor Barfoot has moved that motion. We simply need a seconder.
It's second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. So we have a mover and seconder of the deferred motion. A show of hand. Oh, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I'd just like to comment. I like the idea of deferring and getting the a staff report back on that one. I think we can still be working toward the idea of having a new structure in place for the next term of council. So that gives us a year to get things in place and to maybe understand better that when we as council are sitting on Committee of Adjustment, we are not actually council at that time. So Committee of Adjustment is making decisions that we as council cannot overturn. So that's just a fine definition in there. Thank you.
And you're 100% correct in what you're saying. So I have a deferred motion moved and seconded on the floor. A show of hands, all in favor of the deferred motion? I believe the motion is carried. And so we don't have to worry about our original motion that's been pulled. Okay. So we're now moving on. The other new business is Councillor Colburn pickleball at Kemble Arena. Go ahead, Councillor Colburn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a request from some ratepayers at Cobble Beach regarding the use of the Kemble Community Center over the winter months to play pickleball. As we all are aware, there's no heat in the community center over the winter, and so I believe they have spoken to our facilities coordinator to sort that out and have that discussion. But the other thing that they're asking is sort of I don't know whether you would call it an informal committee or a community group there who would like to be kept up to date on the Kemble Community Center, as we would hope all of our residents would be, but as a group or as a committee. I wonder if they can be added to the correspondence for keeping folks up to date and letting them know about any upcoming public input opportunities for the design of the renovations of the Kemble Community Center. And I do believe that the clerk has received some correspondence in that regard. So I would just, I'm just bringing this to all of council's attention, and I wonder if the best course of action, Mr. Mayor, would be for our clerk to follow up with that individual. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Colbert. I'm going to turn the floor over to our Director of Operations. Steve, any comments?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Colburn. In regards to any action on the Kemble Arena through the upgrades of the proposals and stuff like that, it will be posted on our township website and also through our social media as well for residents to follow what's going on. I know there's a lot of community groups that are very interested in what's happening at the Kemble Arena, like the Presqu'île Community Association there. So they are very interested in that component there. So we're working with them as well, just kind of let them know what's going on from the township point of view. I know people have reached out to the facilities coordinator in regards to trying to get heat out at the Kemble Arena. Because the Kemble Arena, the arena portion itself is actually, it was used for natural ice back in the day. So there is no way for like heat to be retained within that building. So there's gonna be a lot of heat loss going in and out, and it's gonna cost the township a little bit more money than what would be required if we just, waited for it, the upgrades to the facility to be done. I know it's going to be a bit of time. The RFP is out right now, kind of deal, for the design of that building to look at the next steps for Kemble Arena. But I would suggest that, with council here, we be cautious on, trying to heat something of that magnitude that actually just bleeds into the atmosphere, because the vents would be always open, the gates and stuff like that too, because it's meant for more of the natural ice environment back in the day. So.
Thank you, Steve. Madam Clerk, you have the correspondence that Councillor Colburn was referring to from a group or whatever down at Cobble Beach?
I do, yes, thank you. And as council is aware, the Cobble Beach Association is just one of our many community associations that we've seen. First, I think on behalf of all of staff and council, we'd like to thank these associations for their efforts. And as a reciprocation, we have developed an email chain of all of these associations to ensure that they're kept up to date as to large council decisions as well as public engagement opportunities, not just those specific to the Kemble Arena, but township-wide.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I request that correspondence be sent out to all of council.
Absolutely.
Okay. Councillor Colburn, did you get your suggestion answered?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's been addressed adequately. Thank you.
So I'm going to move on with our agenda. Is there any notice of motion from any council member? See none? We are down now to our closed session. The recommendation is that the Council of the Towns of Georgian Bluffs move into closed session at 7:25 with the Director of Finance, Director of Operations, and Acting CAO Clerk to discuss 1, the security of the property of the municipality or local board, and 2, personal matters about identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Barfoot. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Thanks, everybody. We're now in closed session, so you need to go out of this and go back to your closed session. And we Well, it doesn't seem to happen that way anymore.
That are logging don't seem to know what's happening.
And you notice the loggers are coming from out of the area too? They're not the local one.
They're not?
No. That's why.
Are you trying to tell me I took too long, Brittany?
Okay, Mr. Mayor, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council went into closed session to discuss matters under open meeting exemption A and B of Section 239 of the Municipal Act. As a result of closed session discussions, the following actions were taken. Direction was provided to staff. And received for information, no further action was taken. So now I'll read the confirming bylaw. Councillor Barfoot, I see your hand is up. Do you have a question?
Go ahead, I'll ask you later.
Okay, the confirming bylaw is that the bylaw 2021-069 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on October 6, 2021 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed to seal the corporation, endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Thompson. Do you want to ask a question, Councillor Barfoot?
It's nothing to do with what you're talking about. That's the only thing, so go ahead.
Okay, I'll ask for a vote on the motion before us then, please. Show of hands, all in favor of the motion. The motion is carried. Now, Councillor Barfoot, the floor is yours.
Okay, I had 2 phone calls. One phone call was wanting more information on the supposed sewer line that's going in Presqu'île and Sutakarty. And the other was, will local realtors get paid a commission if they bring an offer?
I'm going to turn that over to Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Councillor Barfoot, I'm unsure I can speak to the sewage line question. I would ask that you please forward your question to myself and the Director of Operations for proper follow-up so we can get you the information that you need. Secondly, as discussed earlier, any and all offers are being accepted on the airport. If an offer is presented in which a realtor will be provided a commission, council will have the opportunity to review that offer and make a decision following submission of all offers on October 14th.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Barfoot?
No.
So essentially, Councillor Barfoot, council has the opportunity to evaluate the offer regardless of if there's a commission included. So council has not made a determination either way in regards to commissions. So should an offer be presented in which a realtor will be provided a commission, council will have the opportunity to respond to that offer as they see fit, being whether or not they will pay that commission.
That's sort of different. Like usually realtors will not show property or write offers unless they know they're going to get paid. What you're saying is they may or may not.
That's correct.
I have a problem with that.
Councillor Barfoot, since you're in the real estate business or was, is it the client that pays the commission or the owner of the property?
The seller.
Well, it depends. It depends what the offer says. But somebody's going to pay a commission. Like it's unusual that a buyer would pay the commission. Usually it's the seller that pays the commission.
Okay, so as the clerk has indicated, we'll have to see what comes through, what offer, and if it does involve real estate people, and then at that time, council can make a decision what we're going to do. Councillor Coburn, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just back to Councillor Barfoot's first point. I'm confused. I'm not sure if that is a point of clarification on something that information that we've already discussed, in which case I'm sure that can be circulated by email. But if this is something new, then, and this has to do with the sewage lines, then I would recommend that that come forward to council meeting to be discussed in open session as an agenda item. And not knowing any more about that particular issue, I'll just leave it at that if that makes sense.
I agree. Good comments, Councillor Coburn, and Madam Clerk, you'll follow that.
Yes, that's correct. I think the difficulty is not having more information regarding the question that was asked of Councillor Barfoot. So if I may request, Councillor Barfoot, if you may forward your request, if it is necessary, we will bring it back as an agenda item, being if it has not been presented at this horseshoe. If it has, we will circulate the information to council.
I don't like being put on the spot like that. This person was told that there was a proposed sewer line going in. I said, I don't know anything about it. It's the first time I've heard about it. So I don't like being put on the spot like that.
Okay, I think staff have got.
We'll clarify.
Yeah, okay, staff will clarify that. Our next meeting is going to be October 13th at 5 o'clock. If there's no other business to be discussed here tonight, I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Coburn, second by Councillor Thompson. There's no discussion. All in favor of adjournment? We are now adjourned. Thanks, everybody.